Brian Whitehouse. Yeah, Antopolis is really turning out to be like an A-plus general manager. And obviously, Atlanta's limited with what it wants to spend financially, given the fact that it has corporate ownership. And the fact that Antopolis still is making the kind of moves that he's making, despite the fact that he does not have, like his previous opponent in the National League Championship Series, the Los Angeles Dodgers seem to, an unlimited budget. Atlanta's not working with those limitless constraints. Atlanta's got a self-imposed cap that they can't exceed, and yet Antopolis is still able to add quality pieces to the Atlanta roster each and every year, including at the trade deadline this year, post-All-Star break this year, when a lot of folks, including some diehard Braves fans, by the way, a lot of folks would have said, be a seller here, get what you can. Acuna's injured. Soroka's not available to you. This is a lost year. You might as well just stockpile what you can and get rid of some salary in the process. And yeah, Antopolis went the other way. He made moves, including the initial addition of Jock Peterson, to show this team that he believed in them. They rallied around that. More additions later, and obviously the rest truly is history. One or two more, we'll get ready to start the show. By the way, we may have, and I'm pretty sure this is going to take place, we'll do a little bit on Jordan Davis here today. We're going to have, I'm pretty sure, a very special guest, capital letters, very special guest on Friday to talk a little bit more about Jordan Davis' potential Heisman candidacy, relevant for the person that we'll be talking to. So that is coming down the line. Score Check says Braves Nation Daily. I'm telling you right now, I'm going to try not to talk too much Braves. I promise. We're going to do all Georgia during the show. The rest of the comments will be all Georgia. Y'all are the ones that are drawing me outsides, though. I came here today ready to be professional and do my job. But this is also like every field is right now. Like every single person going back to work today, they're trying to get some work done. Obviously, they're thinking about sports because this is the time of year where, it's just wall-to-wall sports. It's baseball during the week. You roll into the weekends, and it's just a really, really good time. All right, so we're now up on all the platforms. Let's say hello to Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Twitch and all of those. So really good job. Jermaine King, thanks for the kind words. I love our radio partners in Athens. I love my friends at 960 The Ref. Logan and Dave do a great job in the morning show. Obviously, Jeff's over there, and he does a terrific job there as well. I've been a fan of 960 The Ref in Athens since I was literally almost a kid. So I love being on there. Obviously, our show airs at noon each and every day, and I get a chance to pop on the morning show on Wednesday mornings, and it's always one of the things I just look forward to during the week. So I really, really enjoy that. Bob Samblin checks in to say they need to steal another one in Houston tonight. Bob, you better be absolutely truthful on that. You're 100% correct for sure. Score Check, I appreciate that. I know you're just kidding, but in all seriousness, it is one of those things when I start the show, it's like, especially during the comment section, because we have a tendency to kind of go down some rabbit trails on the comment section. I have to have my mind focused of, stay on topic. But yeah, for sure. Very good stuff. Mark Morris also calling for a Georgia cover on Saturday. I like the idea of that. Mark, for sure. Dog in Asheville says, he's having some fun time with that Georgia defense. Good stuff. Ken Feinberg says, did I see the JD to NYC video yet? I need to make sure that I do. Need to make sure that I do that for sure. Dog in Asheville also mentioning October. Yeah, pound for pound for me, the best sports month. I'd probably rank October as the best month. Very quietly, and I know we guess the regular show started here in a moment. October, I'd say, is the best sports month. I would say March is probably the second best sports month as you kind of like roll into NCAA tournament, and that concludes, and then you kind of go right into opening day for Major League Baseball and obviously into the Masters. Now we're getting into April. I realize that. But that stretch from like, say, Players Championship, now that it's back in March, to like the Masters, like mid to late March into April, that's an incredible sports month. And then May, I would say, is a really good sports month because you get a lot of the the arena sport playoffs, and you're into baseball and things like that. So those are my favorite sports months, but nothing for me has ever nor will ever top October. Mike Q says, how many wide receivers are getting back for Saturday? Mike, that's actually going to be something that comes up during our regular show today, in that Kirby Smart gave a pretty prolific may be the wrong word, substantial is a better word, pretty substantial update on all this yesterday. more good news than not. I think it leads me to a point about what the rest of the season might look like for UGA. So why don't we use that as a cue to kind of get things going here. In a moment, we'll hear from Kirby Smart on the topic of wide receivers. Great stuff yesterday on Jordan Davis. Let me tell you this. I know this comes across as self-serving, and I can be a little bit of a blowhard. Anybody who screams into a microphone for a living has a tendency to do that. But y'all, listen to Kirby Smart in his own words here in a moment. He is not putting the fire out on this Jordan Davis to Heisman talk. And if he has every opportunity to say, we ain't worried about that. He has every opportunity to say whatever he wants to. And he is not putting the fire out on this right now. He's letting it burn. And guess what? That is all the permission we need to keep this going. This is really fun. Davis needs to have a big game for Georgia on Saturday. And as a lead into that, a warning, the most well-known, recognized voice in all of college football is that of ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit this week telling Florida, be careful about one aspect of the Georgia defense in particular. What a great way to start our show. It's all on the way next. Mike Griffith stopping by as well. DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans, begins right now.
Presented by DawgNation.com. This is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
I got to tell y'all, I'm loving this time of a sports fan here in the state of Georgia. Obviously, Braves last night in the World Series. How cool was that? And, of course, cocktail party on Saturday. And, yes, like the rest of you who are trying to stay focused on your job today, knowing you may have stayed up late last night watching another one of these marathon World Series games, we'll do the same thing here. As much fun as we're having with Atlanta, as much fun as we're having with the Braves, we'll stay focused on our job, the task at hand, finding a way to beat those lousy, stinking Gators on Saturday. Mike Griffith stops by later on to help us out with all of that. And obviously, we'll go 100 miles an hour in that direction on our program here today, including starting with this. There was an appearance by ESPN's Kirk Herbstreit on the Worldwide Leaders college football podcast. They do like several podcasts during the week, and they kind of, it's actually, I don't love everything ESPN does, but their college football podcast actually has a pretty good format where it's like they'll do a couple of their guys one day and then a couple of their guys the next day. And so you kind of get a number of their prominent voices throughout the week weighing in on college football. And Herbstreit was on there. I guess it would have been Tuesday, I guess. Yesterday maybe was the, I guess it would have been yesterday. And so the subject of the Georgia-Florida game comes up. And Herbstreit had some interesting things to say about this, including in particular a very, very pronounced warning to Florida about something that you've got to know about facing this Georgia defense right now. I think that part of this clip is very fun, but some of the other stuff that Herbstreit says here is worth paying a little bit of attention to as well. So here's about a minute's worth of Kirk Herbstreit laying it out exactly what's at stake for Florida against Georgia, and obviously UGA fans love the praise of that Georgia defense. This is Herbstreit.
They're going to have to make some plays. I mean, you have no shot to be a running quarterback and be a threat against this defense. You're not running the ball against Georgia. Repeat, you are not running the ball against Georgia. So you can try to sprinkle it in, but you are going to have to hit some explosives in the pass game. Can you do that with these, with this quarterback and with these receivers? We'll see. But 2 weeks to get ready. Dan Mullen, a smart guy. They'll come up with some stuff. End of the day, you got to go out and execute, right? And will that be good enough? A lot of emotion in a rivalry game. Florida desperately needs to compete and not lay an egg when they go up against the best team in the country in Georgia.
All right, so there is a lot there. Now, the most important thing that Kirk Herbstreit says there is you are not running the ball against Georgia. And then he repeats it. You are not running the ball against Georgia, that you're going to have to hit explosive passing plays because you don't have a chance to do anything else. That's the most important thing that Herbstreit says there. But can we put a pin in that and come back to that in a moment? Because while it's the most important thing, it's not the only thing that Herbstreit says there that I think is of note. He also says this is a desperate Florida team that can't lay an egg in this spot. We talked about this yesterday. There is a lot of negativity around the Gators program right now. Mullen taking fire during press conference for what he is not doing in recruiting. Wasn't spotted on the trail during the off week. Lost their two biggest commits in each of the last 2 weeks with Julian Humphrey this week and Shamar James the week before that. Todd Grantham, a lot of folks at the time wondered why Mullen brought him back for the 2021 season. That seems like an even worse decision now. we do get greedy around here from time to time. And there is a little bit of greed in our minds and our attitudes right now because we want to see a bad situation for Florida made worse by an awful loss to Georgia on Saturday. That obviously we'll celebrate a win. Those of us who are Gator haters will celebrate a win however it might come. But if it's a chance to see Georgia go out there and really, cause Florida to, as Herbstreit said a moment ago, lay an egg in this game or even in with that goose egg, something that Florida hasn't had since 1987, a shutout, any kind of thing like that, boy, how much fun would that be to make the swirling criticism around Dan Mullen even bigger, even larger. That to me seems really, really fun. Now, the other thing that comes up there is, too, at the end there you hear Herbstreit, and he's mentioned these kinds of things before. This is not new information from Kirk Herbstreit. He mentions the idea of, Dan Mullen with 2 weeks to prepare. Oh, the diabolical offensive genius that is Dan Mullen, the guy who always seems to have an ability to draw up some sort of play in the dirt. Oh, he's so creative. That what is Dan Mullen going to come up with 2 weeks to prepare? Here's the thing, though. The old caricature of what Georgia-Florida used to be, if it was ever true, it just doesn't quite fit anymore. There was this caricature in the Smart era that, Kirby's got the best players. He's going to roll that talent out there. And Dan Mullen may have less talent, but he's going to dial up some sort of scheme that gives his team a chance to win. I'm not saying that Dan Mullen's a bad play caller. I don't think there's evidence to support that. But I do think that Mullen is such a bad recruiter that people have a tendency to overrate his play calling acumen because I think there's assumption, well, if he's coaching in the SEC, he must be a great X's and O's guy because he's a terrible recruiter. That there is a sense in which Mullen's such a bad recruiter that people make him to be more of a wizard as a play caller than he actually is to justify why he's even coaching at a high-level SEC school as it is. So that's part of the character that's probably not quite as true as some people think. But also this notion that Georgia is talent alone. If that was ever true, it's less true now. Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, I'll put Todd Monken's ability to draw up plays. I'll put Todd Monken's ability to, as Kirby Smart has talked about, scheme his players open, get the ball to the guys that you want touching it. I'll put Monken right next to a Dan Mullen in a conversation like that with no problem whatsoever. And when you look at the success of the Georgia defense right now, is it in dispute in any way, form, or fashion that this is not just, I almost said 11 guys, but with the Georgia defense, it's more like 30 guys. This is not just, waves and waves of talent that can be deployed however you want them to be, and they're automatically going to be successful. Listen, that's underselling the role that Dan Lanning plays in this defense and the influence that maybe Kirby Smart still has on this defense, and certainly Lanning's top lieutenants, guys like Trey Scott, who we talked about on the show last week, or Glenn Schumann, or you want to mention Will Muschamp now getting a chance to also influence that some as a special teams coach back in an on-field role here for Georgia. Jamal Adai, a lot of UGA fans still getting acquainted with him as defensive backs coach. That this notion that the Georgia defensive success is about talent alone. I mean, are you watching the games? Are you seeing the way that these guys are dialing up? Smart talks all the time about the simulated pressures or the, making the offense think you're doing one thing when you're doing something else. Clearly, there's also 2 weeks to prepare for these Georgia coaches as well. And Lanning can do something, whether it's Emory Jones in the game or AR-15 in the game. He can do something there in that spot that maybe Dan Mullen's not quite prepared for. And certainly Todd Monken offensively has a chance to kind of do some of the same kind of stuff there as well. That this notion that the 2 weeks benefits Dan Mullen because he's some sort of wizard, some sort of diabolical genius. I'm watching the Georgia coaches when they have chalk in their hand right now, and they're looking like they're drawing up some pretty good stuff there as well. But the most important thing that Herbstreit said a moment ago is, you are not running, and for emphasis, he repeats it, you are not running on this Georgia defense right now, that you better hope that you make some explosive plays in the passing game. Now, imagine here for a moment, and Herbstreit's the biggest voice there is. There's no one whose voice carries more weight in college football conversations than Kirk Herbstreit's does. So imagine how valuable that is. If you say we can take any offense, including a Florida offense that's probably the best offense that Georgia's faced thus far in the regular season. Imagine how valuable that is before the game even begins, if we take Herbstreit at his word, to render your opponent one-dimensional. Render your opponent take half your playbook and basically throw that in the trash, because these running plays that you think you want to try that have worked against even other pretty good teams this season, they're not going to work against Georgia. You better hope you make some explosive plays in the passing game. Now, listen, at one point in time, it was thought that Georgia had some vulnerabilities when it comes to the pass defense, and for the most part, statistically speaking, that group's been fine. Obviously, there's still probably a little bit of a work in progress because some of those guys are young, but still, thus far, that this group is passing that test there as well. And part of the reason why that might be is because when you have great defensive line play, when you have great play from your front seven, all of a sudden you have more bodies you can throw at stopping the passing game. So if we go into the game on Saturday knowing that Florida's got to make the explosive pass plays to win, well, obviously Dan Lanning, this Georgia defense, knows that there as well. And all of a sudden now, because of the beef that Georgia has stopping that run, all of a sudden that gives you more freedom to do all kinds of stuff to limit Florida through the air. And that, as simple as anything, might be the reason why Georgia defense has been this successful so far this season. And obviously the guy that stands as the avatar for all of that, the representation, is Jordan Davis. And boy, I thought it was great yesterday. Kirby Smart had so many really cool things to say about Jordan Davis. And obviously we're kind of way out in front of this. We've done the hashtag JD to NYC. We keep pushing that. We believe that Jordan Davis should be in New York City as a Heisman finalist. We believe he should win the award. But we believe that he ought to get that nod as a representation for everything that the Georgia defense has been about all season long. And obviously Smart's words yesterday, when being asked directly by Jordan Davis, help further explain why this is true. First of all, in terms of trying to define just how valuable he is, because listen, there's a lot of knuckleheads in the kind of the mainstream media, and I say that phrase loosely, but people that aren't as deeply entrenched in the Georgia conversation as we are around here. There are a lot of knuckleheads in that version of the media that still don't understand how a player can be dominant if he doesn't have dominant stats. They don't quite understand that. So Smart yesterday, I thought, did a pretty good job of explaining why the value that Davis has to Georgia, and we'll see this on Saturday against Florida, the value that Davis has to Georgia extends beyond anything that can be measured in a stat sheet. This is Kirby Smart on Jordan Davis.
His value, and I think when you talk about running the ball in the league we're in, you have to be able to have some sort of run game. You don't have to be dominant in the run game, but you got to be able to run the ball. And he makes us have more 3rd and 7 to 12s than we have 3rd and 2 to 4s, if you know what I mean. And just statistically, when you have 3rd and 2 to 4, which we had an inordinate amount against Kentucky and struggled some because they did a nice job on 2nd long, it affects the game. And when you have 3rd and 7 to 10, it helps you. And Jordan is a heavy impact on that because it's tough to run the ball when he's in there. You know, I think what he's done, he's made himself quicker, more agile, and his weight fluctuates from time to time, but he's much more effective when he's under 350. And he's taken it upon himself here lately to really work to be under 350. And I noticeably can tell a difference in him when he's 350 or less. I know that seems like a lot, but he's been higher than that.
I mean, imagine being that athletic with it Davis is, like a 6'6", 350, trying to get to 350. Like, it's not that much of an exaggeration to say that he's almost like a Shaq-like presence in college football, and that the physical size is so imposing that it just greatly affects how opposing offenses even try to block him. And as Smart says right there, that much like what Kirk Herbstreit said a moment ago, that you take away the run game, you force teams to have to try to throw and make the explosive pass plays to beat you. But if you're setting up like 3rd and long situations, 3rd and 8, 9 or more, all of a sudden it becomes much easier to defend against that pass because now you know exactly what's coming. The defensive play call in a 3rd and long situation is just an easier play call than 3rd and 5 is, 3rd and 6 is. A more manageable 3rd down where the entire playbook is kind of brought into the discussion. A 3rd and long is far easier for a defense to defend. So once again, when you see the other Georgia defenders, and there are a lot of them, when you see the other Georgia defenders having success, some of that success is credited to the dominance that Davis has in the middle of the field for the Georgia defense. And then the ongoing conversation that thankfully we've played a role in of Jordan Davis as a true Heisman contender here. I want you to listen to this from Kirby Smart. Now listen, Kirby's classy, and he's not going to be a carnival barker about this the way that I am. But notice what Kirby Smart does not say here. Notice that Kirby Smart, in no part in this clip does he say, oh, we don't think any of our players should be a part of, national award conversation. We're not paying attention to any of that whatsoever. Kirby has every chance here to deny the premise of the question. Hey, what do you think about Davis as a Heisman guy? Do you think that's worth considering? If Kirby wanted to deny the premise of that question and just basically shrug it off, because he does that plenty, and it's his prerogative to do so, but he takes on the question and he gives you a thoughtful answer here, not Carnival Barker style the way that I do, but Kirby Smart does not put the fire out when it comes to Jordan Davis as a Heisman contender. This is his response when asked that yesterday. Take a listen.
I think it's unfortunate that defensive players don't get mentioned for it. And I'm not necessarily advocating Jordan. I'm advocating defensive players because I feel like the NFL values that. And if you look over time, outside of the quarterback position, which they have to draft, and they get drafted every year, 4 to 5 guys on average at quarterback. Outside of that, you have defensive players taking the top 10 every year because they can change the game, whether it's pass rush or corner or somebody locking somebody down or whatever the position may be. But it is what it is, and it's an award that has become quarterback, receiver, running back heavy, and nothing but respect for the award. But certainly, some defensive players across the country deserve some kind of recognition. It's almost like you wish you could take one every year to New York as a defensive player because it's such a great event.
That is exactly right. Whether it be Jordan Davis this year or somebody else in future years, the idea that defensive players haven't gotten more consideration from the award just at face value is wrong. And I tell you, I think one of the things that impacts this is, I'm not against fantasy football, but like so many folks play fantasy football at the NFL level where you only draft like one defense and you can just kind of lump the entire group together. You treat that as like a single entity that we almost, as casual fans sometimes at the casual level of following football, like forget that defenses are made up of intricate personnel pieces, 11 different guys in the field at one time, and there is varying values for the guys on the field. And it's possible for a guy to have outsized value the way that Jordan Davis does right now. So the fact that Smart embraces the idea that a defensive player should be considered for this award, I believe is a wink and a nod of the direction that he's okay with Jordan Davis getting that kind of attention right now. And boy, I hope that buzz continues for him after Saturday. Now, admittedly, I got to pick up the pace here a little bit because we're already going pretty long here, and we got a lot left to do. Let me do this briefly, and we'll talk to Mike Griffith about this more in just a moment. So, Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry puts out an announcement yesterday that says, pleased to see our city council unanimously approve a new contract that's going to keep one of our great traditions in Jacksonville through 2025. He says, many thanks to my city council colleagues. Georgia and Florida are for keeping this rivalry where it belongs. And so obviously the mayor of Jacksonville excited about the contract extension announced yesterday late in the evening for Georgia and Florida to stay in Jacksonville through 2025. And obviously this is the kind of thing that comes up around DawgNation a lot around here. We're big fans of the cocktail party. I'm not going to have a long time on the First Coast here this weekend, but I do enjoy being there, and maybe I'll get a chance to enjoy a little bit of fun after the game on Saturday before I have to race back home for Halloween on Sunday. But still, it's a special tradition for me. I love it. Our buddy Mike Griffith has used every opportunity that he can to talk about how much he hates the idea of the game being in Jacksonville for whatever reason. Well, some of y'all have noticed this there as well. One of our terrific DawgNation contributors, a guy who watches our videos sometimes and comments in there, and pretty active tweeter there too. His name's William Perry. He has actually worked with an artist, a terrific artist. A lot of you may know Dave Helwig, a terrific artist. And he's put this together, and I feel like in honor of the game getting extended in Jacksonville, for those of you watching on video, you got to see this. Now, if you're listening radio podcast, I'll put a link to this in the show notes when we post the show at DawgNation.com later on today. But can we show this? We're going to show this to Mike here in a moment. This is just, this is a true work of art. So let me describe it for those, and Dave Helwig does a great job on this. So you see on the one hand a hot tub there, and you got me, and you got Connor Riley and Jeff Sintel. We're all holding like martini glasses, which is really cool. Thankfully, I am also wearing kind of a sleeveless shirt here, so the audience doesn't have to endure even a animated cartoon version of a shirtless BA. You don't have to see that. You see us wearing the sleeveless shirts there, and all three of us are saying, long live the cocktail party. You see a Georgia Bulldog down there with the sign saying, keep it in Jacks. And then there's the no fun zone, and that's Mike Griffith, and there's a Gator holding up a sign that says he's a party pooper. Mike's like tied to a palm tree. This is really, really funny stuff. I mean, it's actually one of the most impressive works of art that I've probably ever seen. I know Hang It in the Louvre is a little bit of an overused cliche, but this is Louvre quality artwork here. And for those of us who do enjoy the cocktail party, which Jeff, Connor, and I all do enjoy, Mike Griffith on the other side of that, I love the idea of our buddy William Perry saying that's the no fun zone, and that's where Mike Griffith belongs. That is really, really good stuff. And so we'll talk to Mike about that. More coming up in a moment, and let's go ahead and roll on with the rest of the show right now. My name's Brandon Adams, and this is DawgNation Daily, the daily podcast for Georgia Bulldogs fans. Glad to have you with us on video, 9:45 for our first and 15 there at DawgNation.com and on the DawgNation app. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. We're on all those platforms there for you as well. Radio Noon, Athens Sports Radio 96 The Ref, podcast on all the various platforms there as well. Just really appreciate you being a part of the program today. And as I said before, we got to kind of pick up the pace here a little bit. You can tell it's Georgia-Florida week because we are going long and diving deep into everything. But how can you not? When you got the number one team in the country, when you got a defensive tackle making a strong case for the Heisman Trophy, when you get a chance to really sink your teeth into your hated rival, the Florida Gators, on Saturday and having some fun. I know a lot of you, if you're not already in St. Simon's or Amelia Island or Jacksonville or St. Augustine, one of these places, a lot of you heading down that way already as it is. A lot of you are going to be watching some World Series games, from the beach, which is a cool thing all the way around. So how can you not be having fun at a time like this? So we just really appreciate all of that. But we do have some serious work to take care of, so we'll get ready to do that. We'll talk to Mike Griffith here in a moment, and we'll show Mike, and hopefully he'll be able to see this. Maybe he'll tune into the video to get a chance to see this. But we'll show Mike the work that the great artist Dave Helwick commissioned, as it was, by one of our listeners and viewers, William Perry. We'll have some fun with Mike on that in a moment. So before that, though, let's go around the doghouse, furnished today by our friends at Rooms to Go, and we got to get serious with some football talk here for a moment. And I said this to our video audience before the regular show began. We'll do a little bit of quarterback talk with Mike here in a moment. I'm guessing he's going to stir the pot on that a bit. I have a little bit of a scouting report that suggests that might be the case. But for the most part, I'm going to push quarterback stuff aside for today. Some of you want to hear some different stuff. We have to come back to that topic again before the week's done because it's just the biggest thing going on. But we can also talk about some other things here for a moment. In fact, there is a pretty interesting topic to get into related to the Georgia offense that doesn't right now involve the quarterbacks, and this came up with Kirby again yesterday there as well. So here with Around the Doghouse, furnished by Rooms to Go, let's talk wide receivers for a moment, because very quietly, and you got to really listen here to hear this because some of this sounds like bad news, but very quietly yesterday, I thought Kirby Smart gave us a pretty good piece of good news about the Georgia wide receiver room right now, that it is still unbelievably banged up, but maybe healthier than it's been, and maybe for one name in particular. Kirby Smart was asked about the potential return of Arian Smith. You know, Smith is the speedster here, and Smart gives you more good than bad news about him and maybe slightly the wide receiver situation overall. This is Kirby.
Yeah, we're hoping to get Arian back. He's been closer each week. It's just a lower leg contusion that has really bothered him when he plants and runs. But, I mean, he's much closer this week. He's been on about a 50% pitch count. He's been repping with the twos, and he's getting reps. And, I think he's looked better this week than he has in the past. We got to hope that continues the rest of the week. Jermaine's been bothered by the groin. He's fought through that. He's not 100%. Justin Robinson's got a little bit of a hamstring now. So he's banged up. Dom's still out. So I feel like we're better off than we were going into the Auburn game, but I don't feel like we're near where we need to be in terms of at wide receivers. But I do think Arian will be back, and Marcus Roseman's done a good job this week, and Jermaine's been out there practicing. So just those three alone are a huge boost.
I mean, you have to really strain yourself to hear the good news there, because it seems like there's still a lot of guys who are pretty banged up, and even the healthier guys like Burton sounds like he's still dealing with something. But once again, I take that as more good news than bad, especially in the name of Arian Smith. Now, let me be a total fan for 1 second. This is not analysis. This is just fan talk here for a moment, admittedly so. I sort of have this premonition. I sort of have this sneaking suspicion, in other words, that Arian Smith is going to end up being involved in one of the biggest plays of the season for Georgia. I just sort of have this feeling, and you see this in playoff baseball all the time. I'm not going to do Braves talk right now, but you see the Eddie Rosario step up when you really need them to. You see guys that were not a part of your initial story who become a part of your late season story. Sports tells you these kinds of tales all the time. I just sort of get the impression that Arian Smith, who really hasn't been heard, I think he had a touchdown earlier this year, but really hasn't been heard from much at all this season, that one of the biggest plays of this year is still likely to be made by Arian Smith. To me, and I know this is going to sound like a crazy level of praise, but just hear me out on this, just really, really quick for a moment. I think Arian Smith, if he truly does come back healthy, and by the way, Georgia's still got a lot of football left to go. I mean, there's still, if you play all the way into January, there's a lot of games still left on the schedule for Georgia. I think Arian Smith has a chance to be a little bit for the offense like what Jordan Davis is for the defense. I'm not saying Heisman Trophy winner. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that part of Davis's value is the fact that he makes other players better because he's so big. Well, Arian Smith, I believe, can still do that for the Georgia offense because he's so fast. And then when he's running those deep routes, there is all kinds of room to operate underneath. Playing off of Arian Smith, the way that you kind of think of receivers doing from time to time, creates additional value for the other pass-catching targets that are on the field. So maybe Smart is sandbagging here a little bit, or maybe Smith's not quite fully healthy for this game on Saturday. Maybe he is, whatever. But I just sort of have this sneaking suspicion that if the Georgia season goes the way that those of us who are Georgia fans want it to, boy, we may hear from Arian Smith in a big way. His fingerprints may be all over one of the biggest plays of the next part of the Georgia season there at some point in time. Just something to think about, something to file away. That is Around the Doghouse. It's furnished by our friends at Rooms to Go, and obviously we love Rooms to Go because, listen, it feels good to live in a home that looks good, right? And great furniture is a big step in that direction. And some of you are almost there. You just sort of need that one additional furniture piece, or you need that accent piece to go along with your decor. Others of you are like, maybe we're in a kind of time where a lot of folks have just moved into new homes. Real estate market's been incredibly hot. So you just moved into a new home and you look around, you say, wow, we got a lot of work to do. We got to get this entire house furnished now. Well, that's where Rooms to Go steps in, because Rooms to Go is literally their name. Full rooms, they can furnish that for you. I'm talking about whether it's the living room, your bedroom, your kids' bedrooms, you want the outdoor furniture. It's amazing how many people have really stepped up their game in terms of making use of their outdoor living space. That's become such a popular thing as of late. Well, great furniture outside is a big part of that there as well. That's where Rooms to Go is a big winner for you there, too. You can start your shopping experience. Just go to one of their showrooms. I always like doing that. I'm kind of an in-person shopper in a lot of ways. I like to sit in the couches. I like to lay on the beds, or, even lay down on the couch from time to time, because that's what I do at my own home a lot. Just got to make sure it all feels as comfortable as it's supposed to be. That's what Rooms to Go can provide for you. But if you'd rather start your shopping experience online, you can do that there as well. Roomstogo.com for that. It's roomstogo.com for all of that, and you can check all of that out there today. All right, so that's Around the Doghouse, furnished by our friends at Rooms to Go. There is a lot to do with Georgia, as I'm looking at the wrong camera. See, we're still going to get used to new studio here. There is a lot to do as far as Georgia getting ready for Florida on Saturday. A lot of that happening during practice. Mike Griffith actually got a chance to see some practice a little earlier this week, so that's a good thing to be able to talk about right now. So let's do that all with a practice report brought to you by Georgia Farm Bureau with Mike Griffith here on DawgNation Daily today.
From Athens and across the SEC, or wherever the recruiting trail may lead, here's a DawgNation.com insider.
All right, we'll say hello to Mike Griffith. Practice report here brought to you by Georgia Farm Bureau. We got a lot of serious stuff to do with Mike here in just a moment. But I do have to start with something fun here, Mike. And I don't know if you've got our video pulled up. Maybe you could pull this up on your phone. I know it's delayed for you. Maybe you get a chance to see this here a little bit. One of our, prolific commenters on video and Twitter, William Perry, has commissioned an artist, a terrific artist, Dave Helwig. I don't know if you've seen the drawing of you on the No Fun Zone. And this is all in good fun. William's just poking fun at you for a topic that you've been very, very outspoken about. Jeff and Connor and me, thankfully, we're not shirtless, at least especially for me, thankfully. I'm not shirtless, but we're enjoying some martini glasses as part of the cocktail party. You're in the party pooper No Fun Zone. This is a tremendous work of art and something that I think is really funny. I hope you've gotten a chance to see it, because what a great kind of, I guess, remembrance of one of the great sort of inside topics here around DawgNation over the last couple of years. How much fun is that, Mike?
It's a funny picture. It is. I just, you know how I feel, BA. I love Sanford Stadium. I love Athens. I think this is a great area. I think it's. I think I wouldn't want any games to be at Sanford Stadium or to be taken away from Sanford Stadium unless they had to. I'm not big on the neutral site openers. I'm a campus guy. I like the guy on campus. I like the idea that the guy that owns the local restaurant or the local shop can make some money and stay in business. And I love that Jacksonville area to go on vacation, but just not when I want to go see a game. I want to see it on a campus. And just from my years of experience, whether it was watching Auburn win at the Swamp or Tennessee win at the Swamp or Alabama, it just seemed like it was always one of the sweetest and greatest wins for teams I covered to go into Gainesville and win there. There was just something about silencing that incredible crowd that they have in Gainesville. So while I appreciate Jacksonville, it's a cool place, I just prefer the on-campus environment and the economics of it. I mean, congratulations. I'll say this, Brandon, you got to congratulate Jacksonville. They've done a tremendous job, getting the Georgia money in their pocket. I mean, it's a tourist state. These people are experts at luring people down there, spending what they need to spend so that they can make money off of outside folks. And you give Jacksonville a lot of credit. They won this over. They negotiated in silence. They released this at 9 o'clock at night. You don't see Georgia releasing it or talking about it. So you got to give Jacksonville and Florida a lot of credit. And, congratulations to the Gators. I mean, they're going to keep the game 70 miles from their stadium, and kids can still go down there for the weekend and see the game and see their campus. So it's a big win for Florida, and you got to give them credit for that.
Along those lines, and, I think it'll be fun tomorrow. I'm going to show this image to Connor and Jeff on Cover 4 Live. I think they're going to get a big kick out of that. I think it's really funny.
You love this, BA. I know
do.
You do.
I know. Listen, I'm as impressed with that. I may hang. That's suitable for framing. I may hang this over my mantle in my fireplace.
You know what? We should do this print. We should absolutely make this a print.
No, I think there's definitely some room to do that as we move on from that. I think that's well done all the way around. On a serious note on this topic, then we'll move on and talk about something different. I mean, here's the sense that I get, Mike, and I am admittedly a fan of the cocktail party. I do enjoy it. Historically, it's been something that I've always looked forward to. But you do get the sense that in future years, I'm talking about beyond this extension, that while the game may remain in Jacksonville, there is a little bit of a push. Some of this is rank and file fans. Some of this is Kirby Smart himself, where I think Georgia's at least more willing to consider its options on this than maybe it would have been in the past. And so if the game is going to remain in Jacksonville beyond the current extension that was announced last night, you got to think for both parties here, Georgia and Florida, there's going to be a lot of ponying up by Jacksonville to get this done. The game may be in Jacksonville for the rest of my life, who knows? But it certainly seems like both the schools, maybe Georgia especially because of the outspoken statements of Kirby Smart, they are in a much greater position to drive a strong bargain and a hard bargain on this because, boy, it certainly seems like there has been some public tide that's probably moved in your direction on this. Not every Georgia fan likes the game there on the First Coast. I acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think about 75% of the fans, when we did a poll, said they didn't want it to be exclusively in Jacksonville. They wanted some sort of rotation, and what I've said will happen eventually. If not Kirby, the next coach will make it a contingent that part of his contract will be getting this game back home and home. You'd be crazy to take over at a place where you're asked to compete for national championships, but you're going to give the rest of the league a 12.5% recruiting advantage right out of the gate. Georgia's the only school in the SEC that doesn't get 8 SEC home games every 2 years. Everybody else gets that in their home state, but Georgia. Georgia puts themselves at that recruiting disadvantage. But, you look at the money, Brandon, and the economic impact. I mean, $35 million a year. I'll tell you what I did just for fun. Jacksonville has one of the top 2 school districts in the state of Florida. You look at, Gainesville has their own airport. It's 70 miles from Jacksonville, but they have their own airport. I think it has 6 or 8 gates. You look at the commerce. You look at the hospital rankings in Jacksonville. They have the top hospital in the state. And then I look at Northeast Georgia. You're a Northeast Georgia guy.
I was born in Northeast Georgia Medical Center.
Yeah, I mean, you look and you say that, that the hospital's not as good, the schools aren't as good. If we're talking about a potential 15 to, you don't have an airport in Athens, limits your growth potential, you're talking about $15 to $20 million of economic impact every 2 years. You're basically talking about Georgia giving away $100 million in economic impact every 10 years by giving this game up. Now, the university makes a few extra $1 million, but it comes at the expense of their neighbors, their doctors, their teachers. And that's what's sad to me. It's that it's bigger than football. It's, we talk about SEC and what makes it special, and it's a part of our community. As you said, I mean, this is a part of our lives, and we don't need to apologize for that. This is part of what we love about being in the South is college football and bringing this into our livelihood. And the fact that some of this money is essentially shifted to another state out of the sake of tradition, out of the sake of common sense, because it doesn't help you in recruiting. It doesn't give you an advantage when you ask when it doesn't pass the Kirby Smart test. The Kirby Smart test is this: does it help us win a championship? Yes or no? Yeah, I think we know the answer. But that's what makes the graphic fun, is we all look at it in different ways. I mean, Jeff Sentell has a fantastic story about him and his wife in Jacksonville, and it warms my heart because Jeff's such a wonderful guy. The passion that you show on DawgNation Daily every day, Brandon, is unparalleled. It's part of what makes your show so much stinking fun, as you would say.
Ha.
And going to Jacksonville for the game, it's like going to a NASCAR event. Everybody's flying their flags, throwing cornhole, drinking their favorite beverage or whatever. It's like a NASCAR event in the middle of football. I just got to tell you, I'm just so partial to Sanford Stadium. I'm so blown away by the $80 million football building, the $60 million end zone, the skyline, the game day. To me, Athens is the best place to be on a college football Saturday, and I'm just greedy with it. I want to see as many games in that stadium as possible.
It's our Farm Bureau practice report, Georgia Farm Bureau practice report with Mike Griffith here right now, and I thought that yesterday, now you got to listen closely to hear this, but it sounded like Kirby Smart gave a pretty positive update on Arian Smith, the speedy wide receiver, and I was kind of half kidding, half serious with our audience a moment ago, speaking solely as a fan here. This is not analysis. This is just my kind of fan's intuition, that I think that over the course of the remaining games for Georgia this season, I just have this sense that if Arian Smith can get healthy, he's going to be a part of one of the biggest plays that Georgia makes this season, because he's the guy that stretches the opposing defense. He's the guy that can get behind that defense. I haven't seen a lot of him yet this year, but he's the guy that really provides a dimension that no other pass-catching target has. And if you have a championship season, sometimes you have guys step up at the end of the year that maybe weren't a part of the story at the beginning of the season. That's a fairly common thing across multiple sports. And the idea that Smith may be either ready to come back against Florida or maybe it's later on the season, but more of a positive update than not related to Smith's contusion thing that he's been dealing with. I take that as pretty good news. What did you make of what Smart said about the receiver situation last night?
Well, I was lucky enough to be at practice on Monday. And first of all, Brandon, I think we all just said, now of all the weeks Kirby's going to open up practice, he's going to do it Florida week? That's always... and because we play the game in the media, and fans probably do too now. We've got a pretty sophisticated following on DawgNation Daily. Fans notice that Kirby Smart doesn't make any accidents. Oh, whoops, did we really decide to who let these guys? No. Kirby purposely let the media in. There was a reason for this, BA. There was a reason that Kirby let the media in. One of the things I saw was Arian Smith looking great. I reported it. I said he looked almost full speed. Kirby said yesterday that he's gotten better. When I saw him running around, he looked good. And the term I'm going to give you is nuclear speed.
Wow.
Because you were talking about him making big plays. There's some light association with the bomb there. I don't want to offend any people sensitive to warfare, but he's got nuclear speed, to your point. You better know. Listen, if I'm Todd Grantham, look, Brock Bowers is the guy in my bullseye. I'm going to follow 19 because, daggone it, Monken moves this kid around so much and finds ways to get him open that I'm having somebody chase 19 around. I'm just like, look, this guy's getting the ball. Somebody know where 19 is every damn play. But if you see 11 come in there and you're a DB, my ears are perking up because this kid's 4.23 speed. I mean, that's legit. This isn't some made-up number. This is a guy who has elite, global, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman-like speed. 4.23. 4.23 is what he ran this summer at the Georgia Combine. So, yeah, you're right, B.A., and I do think if there's one thing this kid can do, it's pull it down. Now, he's not going to make 30 or 40 catches.
Right.
You know, he can't stay healthy enough to do that. But, hey, if he can make 2 or 3 in the big games, he got his scholarship.
Well, I don't think that's an insignificant point that, I don't think of Arian Smith for a number of reasons beyond the health. I don't think of Arian Smith as like the leading receiver for Georgia. I can't be that. To me, he's the candidate that he may only have one catch in a game, but it may be a doozy, and it changes the balance of the game. And Georgia has not had a lot of those guys. First of all, there aren't a lot of true burner receivers who are, capable of going out and winning those battles to actually bring down the football. There are a lot of speed guys in the SEC who end up not making much of an impact. It's not as much of a no-brainer as you might think from time to time. But Smith's shown you he can find the end zone, and he's done it at least once this year and, a couple times last year there as well, that he's the guy that he may only have one catch, he may have 2 catches, but it's the kind of catch that could change a game.
Or the kind of jet sweep
that
can change the game. I mean, Monken, you can use him, and that's just, boy, I'll tell you what, and man, Kirby's done an unbelievable job, and he is absolutely the captain of this ship. But boy, I'll tell you, Todd Monken is such a winning edge, BA. He just,
I agree.
When Eric Zier was talking about the difference with Stetson last year to this year, he said the supporting cast and the scheme. There's reads out there, and Monken they find the open guy. The principle of this air raid is that there's always open air on the field, and it's a matter of identifying it and sending your receiver to there and then delivering the ball accurately, obviously. But the fact of the matter is somebody's always open. Somebody's always open, and that's what this Georgia offense does so well. And it sounds cliche, and you've heard it before, but with Todd Monken, I mean, this guy is one heck of a play caller, but more so a schemer.
No doubt.
And he's able to identify personnel to exploit, and then he's able to identify the formation and where that space will be and train the quarterback to be able to recognize that and make the adjustment with the receiver. So to your point on Arian Smith, hey, he's not the guy, but if you send him to that open area of the field, he runs to space and you throw it there, he's going to catch it. I'm with you. I think we could see a big play out of Arian Smith this week, and certainly by the end of the year, and a game changer or a momentum builder.
And I want to be respectful of your time, but the point you're making about Monken is one that we've kind of echoed here, there as well, that everybody makes a big deal about Dan Mullen with 2 weeks to prepare. Mike, give Todd Monken 2 weeks to prepare and see what he comes up with, right? I mean, and maybe Georgia doesn't even need it to beat Florida because they're obviously a big favorite in the game, but this idea that the only person who's a fiend with chalk in his hand is Dan Mullen, I'm sorry, that's not the case. This is not talent alone that Georgia's doing what it's done through the first half of this season. I think that Georgia's getting a schematic edge from Dan Lanning as defensive coordinator, and I know for a fact that it's getting one from Todd Monken. Now, listen, I'm not smart enough to tell you all the things that Monken's doing, but the results, Georgia scored at least 30 or more in every game but one this season. The results speak for themselves that Monken is an impact coordinator, and the way that folks want to throw the praise at Mullen for what he can do with 2 weeks to prepare, I trust Todd Monken in that role there too.
No question, and I think he's a big part of the reason that JT Daniels is here. I think he's a big part of the reason that Brock Vandegrift's here. I think he's a big part of the reason that Manning is looking at Georgia. I'd be ready to pay a king's ransom to keep Todd Monken. I'd make him the first $3 million offensive coordinator if you had to, because working with Kirby's not a piece of cake. He's very demanding. The expectations here are sky high, and the head coach likes to poke his head in that quarterback room every now and then. And not a lot of coordinators, not a lot of high-profile guys want to deal with that. But Monken seems to have a lot of mutual respect with Kirby. Kirby talks really fondly of Todd Monken. He respects him. I think that this Georgia quarterback situation will work itself out. The proof's in the pudding. We'll see them both, and we'll see what they do. At the end of the day, you can argue or whatever stats you want to use or whatever game you want to pull from. But, the proof's in the pudding, and we'll see who moves the team and what they do. And Kirby Smart wants to win championships at the end of the day, and he'll play the guy. And I'll say this about Dan Lanning, too. I mean, Dan Lanning and the way this Georgia defense is built, and I had a chance to talk to Jordan Davis, and my goodness, I walked away from that interview and I said to somebody, you talk to a kid like Jordan Davis and you're reminded why you enjoy your job as a college football writer.
Yeah.
This kid is so upbeat, so team-oriented, so genuinely bought in. You hear some guys talk and it almost just sounds like they're saying what they're supposed to say. But Jordan believes what he's saying. And Brandon, when I asked him about coming back and if this could be a trend now with NIL, because before a lot of these guys went pro because they needed the money. But now, if you're a Jordan Davis and you can make $750,000 on an NIL deal and still have your senior year and improve your draft stock and give your family money that they need and purchase insurance, obviously, I think we're going to see it more of a trend of players coming back, especially at Georgia, because to me, this was one of the missing pieces, not to hijack the topic, but Alabama had 6 seniors come back, and that was why they won a national title last year. They were all first-rounders. If Georgia gets in the habit of bringing guys like Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt and Justin Schaefers, heck, what if Jake Fromm and DeAndre Swift would have come back in 2020? That could have been a national championship team last year if you plug in Jake Fromm and DeAndre Swift and they lost a corner. I'm trying to think. There was another guy that could have stayed that left. But the point is, Jordan Davis can be a program changer, not only for this year, but maybe for years in the future, because people will see how he handled his senior year, how much he enjoyed it, how much he grew from it, and hopefully, and I believe still, the national championship trophy in the Georgia trophy case.
No, I think that's all really fair. I know you got a heart out here in a moment. Let me do real quick because I want to do one more thing on quarterbacks with you before we let you go. That's our Georgia Farm Bureau practice report. As Mike said, he saw some of practice this week. He's sharing that insight with us. And, of course, Georgia Farm Bureau shares a lot with you there as well, including dependable auto insurance coverage. They know how important your vehicle is. You're going to work every single day. Dependable transportation is a big part of that. That means being able to trust your auto insurance provider to be able to keep its promises to you. And that's what Georgia Farm Bureau has been doing for folks here in communities all across Georgia since 1959. They take good care of you. They have friendly folks who are kind of helping with your policy, those local claims adjusters, those people that are really working on the scene with you to give you everything you need. So check them out online, gfbinsurance.com, gfbinsurance.com for more on that with our friends at Georgia Farm Bureau. All right, Mike, very quick last thing. You hit quarterback there a moment ago. Let me go deeper into that right now. What do you expect to happen on Saturday between JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett on the basis of what you saw, what you've heard, what Smart himself has had to say?
Well, again, Kirby let us in practice on Monday for a reason, and he showed us the drills that he wanted to show us. He knew exactly when we were in, exactly when we were leaving. So he wanted us to see JT take snaps ahead of Stetson Bennett for some reason. There wasn't a whole lot going on. JT lines up, James Cook's behind him, handoff, bootleg. Stetson lines up, Zamir White, number 2, behind him. Carson Beck lines up, Kenny McIntosh, and Brock Vandegrift lines up, and Dejon Edwards is behind him. So they go through this little drill. That doesn't mean anybody's starting, but clearly JT was the first quarterback in line at the drill. Okay? And then they all throw. There's another drill where they snap the ball like you see in the end zone pregame. They all 4 get to snap at the same time. They all throw at the same time to 4 different receivers. And we see JT and the quarterbacks throw balls, all 3 levels, to different receivers over the course of about 5 minutes. Kirby Smart wanted us to see that quarterback exhibition. He wanted us to see that JT Daniels does indeed look good and look healthy throwing the football. Now, why does he want us to see that? Why does he want Florida to know that? Probably because he wants the Gators to have to prepare for 2 different quarterbacks, because they're 2 different game plans. They can say what they want, but Stetson needs the run game and the play-action game to be effective. I won't get into all the numbers behind that, but they're there. Whereas JT is a guy that can throw to set up the run. JT is a guy that can see the entire field and has NFL arm talent. Stetson is a tough kid with moxie that can get you a few extra yards on the scramble and buy you some extra time. So I think it's what I expect is, I guess if I had to guess, I think we'll see a rotation. I'm not sure who starts. I would probably I really am not sure who starts. Maybe I guess I'd lean slightly towards JT a little bit, and bring Stet in, but I wouldn't be surprised if Stetson starts and JT comes in. But I do think we'll see both quarterbacks for both teams. And it makes for an exciting game because this Florida team can score points.
Yeah.
And you take away the mistakes, and they're pretty doggone good. If they can clean it up and put it all together, we might have an entertaining game for a few quarters.
And quick follow-up, it's also one of those things that has the potential to evolve as the regular season progresses, right? That Daniel's healthy this week in practice, healthy enough to play again on Saturday. The dispersion between the two on Saturday against Florida, there's a chance that we see this continue to evolve ahead of the big showdown in December and the likely SEC championship matchup as well, right?
Oh, there's no question. I mean, you could see some red zone packages for Stet. The bottom line is this, and we've seen this act before. JT Daniels can take this offense to another level when he's healthy. When I say another level, I mean all gas, no brakes. I mean, I think that if JT would have stayed healthy all year, played the if game, but there really isn't a Heisman Trophy guy out there. I mean, part of the reason why JD for Heisman has got some traction is because who else is out there?
Yeah.
You look at the preseason favorites. Some of them, Spencer Rattler, he's not even starting anymore. But just imagine if JT was out there and he was putting up these prolific numbers, he'd be a slam dunk top 2 or 3 Heisman guy. But when he's in there, Brandon, this offense just, he's 9-9 on third down throws and SEC play. I mean, they just look unstoppable. They just look unstoppable with him out there. So, but Stetson gives you, that scrambler, could be the red zone threat. And man, what an insurance policy! I mean, all this guy's done is win this year. So I think it's a great situation. But to your point, I think it takes care of itself over time.
All right, Mike, good stuff. We'll read more from you at DawgNation.com. We'll see you tomorrow night, Cover 4 Live on video. Happy to have that show back again after a week off last week. So all that is really, really good, and we will chat with you on down the line.
All right, appreciate it, Brandon.
Let's take a look around the rest of the league. This is SEC Through.
All right, good stuff there from Mike Griffith. There are 2 quick things I want to say about what he said. Then, as I said before, we'll try to keep the pace moving here as this is turning into another one of those marathon-type shows. First of all, on the Jacksonville thing, just really, really quick. Here's one of the things that I think people kind of misunderstand about that. Now, first of all, Mike seems to think the public schools in Duval and Nassau County are better than I do, but that's probably a different conversation for a different day. Beyond that, though, I'm not quite so sure there's more money spent on the Georgia-Florida game in the state of Florida than there is in the state of Georgia, both in terms of all the folks who stay right there on those beautiful Golden Isles in Georgia, St. Simon's, and that whole area around there. Y'all know I love that part of the world. Wish I could be there this weekend. A lot of money goes into that community during all of this. And plus, here's the thing, is to be completely honest, and this is kind of off-brand for me a little bit, but we've always loved Amelia Island, which is actually in the state of Florida. But here's the thing, when you go to Amelia Island, a lot of the people who work in those resorts down there live in Georgia. So Amelia Island, in fact, you'd be hard-pressed almost to find, a huge pocket of people that work in those resort communities down there that don't drive over from, the southeast corner of the state of Georgia into that area to be a part of that. So there's still a big impact on the Georgia economy for the Georgia-Florida game in Jacksonville because of where Jacksonville is located. Not that that's the reason to keep it there or not, but just important to know for someone who spends a lot of time down there in that kind of coastal Georgia, Amelia Island, Jacksonville area. There's a reason why folks call that Jacksonville, Georgia, because it kind of has that flair to it. Here's the other thing on JT Daniels, very, very quick, because I tried to tell you we weren't going to talk much about quarterback, and I want to keep my promise on that. The most important thing to understand about JT Daniels is this, and the most important thing to understand about the Georgia quarterback situation right now is this, that this week we have gotten incredibly good news, those of us who are Georgia fans. First and foremost, the good news that you shouldn't lose sight of, JT Daniels is now back healthy again. JT Daniels is a full participant in practice, and that allows him to be a player on the field for Georgia. Now, once you move into, well, how much is he going to play, and what's he going to do when he does play, and how much is Stetson Bennett play, and what does the team think about all this? There is a certain moment where you kind of move into the mysterious realm, and I get that, and it's hard not to go there a little bit, but there is also the absolute cold, hard fact that Georgia this week has gotten great news. A very good player that was not healthy has now returned to health. Now, there's also no guarantee that JT stays there because JT's been banged up a lot this season. These things have a tendency to linger, and there's no guarantee there won't be some sort of flame up of the muscle injury, whatever zone of the muscle it is for JT. No guarantee that he remains healthy the rest of the season, but for now he is healthy. For now he is an option again for Georgia, and to what extent that option is deployed, we'll find that out. But the fact that he's even an available option, it's always a good thing to have good players who are healthy, and Georgia's got that right now in the person of JT Daniels. So that, at least, is very good news. Let's go cruising around the SEC here, courtesy of our friends at Royal Caribbean. And obviously, it's a great time to be on the seas with Royal Caribbean. The ships are back sailing, and one of the best places that you can go out of, and for a lot of folks, it's like the convenience, right? And so I'm in the Atlanta area right here in our DawgNation World Headquarters studios. I can hop in a car, few-hour drive. I'm down there at Port Canaveral, easy to get to, right there on the Atlantic coast of Florida. It's kind of just south of Orlando, I guess, if you're kind of going that way. Easy to get to, right below Daytona, kind of in a lot of ways. It's very, very convenient to get to. It's probably the easiest way for you to take a cruise vacation with our friends at Royal Caribbean, especially for a first-time cruiser. It's probably the easiest port to get to all the way around. And it's a great chance to take advantage of, like, Mariner of the Seas. That's a recently amplified ship in the Royal Caribbean fleet that's doing, like, 3- and 4-night sailings around the Bahamas. That means you're going to be able to go to Perfect Day, Coco Cay. I know you've heard me tell you about that. It's a great experience to get involved in a cruise vacation, and maybe after that you're ready for a 7-night sailing, or you're ready for like a trip to Alaska or some of the other cool things that Royal Caribbean's doing. But a good entryway to that, kind of a first step, is one of those 3- or 4-night cruise sailings that goes around the Bahamas, leaving out of Port Canaveral on a ship like Mariner of the Seas. I've been on Mariner of the Seas many times. It's a beautiful vessel, so you can check that out. And of course, always good to have experts helping you with this. Our friends at the Cruise and Vacation Authority can set you up with that. Check them out online, tcava.com, tcava.com, or give them a call, 770-952-8300. That's 770-952-8300. Friendly voice on the other side will help you get that cruise vacation booked. All right, let's do a couple of stories here really quick as we're cruising on the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. I saw where some Alabama fans are mocking LSU fans right now, because this is like one of the classic things that happens from the SEC. In every stadium, there's a small pocket. I think at Georgia it's around 8,000 tickets or so. I believe it's supposed to be a percentage of the total tickets available in your stadium, but a percentage of that has to go to the away school. And at Georgia, as I said before, I believe it's around 8,000 tickets or so. Bryant Denny, I think their capacity may be slightly larger than Georgia's, so they may have more visitor tickets, whatever. But there's that moment when the opposing fan base decides they no longer believe in their team, or they don't want to come see them get beat up by a team like Alabama, and so therefore the tickets get returned. That's always the ultimate white flag of surrender in college football, when the opposing team returns some of their tickets to the home venue because they didn't get sold, and then Alabama gets turned around and put those on its official site and actually just sell those to the general public. I'm sure they probably offer them to the big donors first, but rare to have a secondary resale of tickets like that to the Alabama-LSU game. And so Alabama fans are kind of mocking LSU fans for that, but it also kind of got me thinking about this. So LSU has gotten 2 very big wins against Kirby Smart in the Smart era. The 2018 game there in Baton Rouge, and obviously the 2019 SEC championship. LSU won the national championship that particular season. But isn't it appropriate now to say about Georgia in comparison to LSU what we once would have said about Georgia in comparison to Auburn? And easier to say this about Auburn because in addition to everything else for Auburn, they had a lot of success. Georgia had a lot of success against Auburn. So it would have been said over the course of the last, we're a little bit more than a decade removed from Auburn's national championship in 2010, we would have said, I don't care that Auburn won the national title. The decade belonged to Georgia. The last 10 years have been better for Georgia. Now 11 years. Last 11 or so years have been better for Georgia than they have been for Auburn. Yes, they had Cam Newton. Yes, he won the Heisman Trophy. And yes, he led them to the national championship. But if the last 11 years since that title actually been very good for Auburn, I would suggest they probably have not been. That Georgia, a more consistent winner despite the lack of a national championship, has probably had the better run as of late. Now, a little bit more of a stretch to say that about LSU because LSU's national championship was only recently. But the goal in college football is to be good every year, right? The goal in college football is to be able to build something that lasts, something that's not a flash in the pan. We see that in professional sports from time to time, free agency and all that kind of stuff makes it easier to do that. But in college football, it's not about being a flash in the pan in the same kind of way. And ask yourself right now, if you're an LSU fan, how many happy memories are they recalling right now but the 2019 national championship? They were dominant. They may have been the greatest team of my lifetime, and I mean that literally. But are they enjoying themselves on that? Are they having a good time with all of that right now? Clearly, apparently not, because in the lame duck year for Ed Orgeron, they're sending tickets back to Tuscaloosa because their fans don't want to see what is a fairly obvious beatdown taking place there. So no, my guess is they probably don't want to do that very much at all. I was going to do a Mike Tomlin thing. He had a big viral quote yesterday. That's true. We've gone so late on today's show. Let me say the Tomlin thing. I may actually do that today as a part of SEC Country Live because I do think there is an SEC tie-in to the Tomlin rant from yesterday. So we may save that and do that there for that. Let me also say hello to Classic City Lager. Of course, Creature Comforts Brewing Company does it for you. Available 6 and 12-pack cans. It's just good cold beer, lager-style beer, which means it's lighter in flavor, or I should say lighter in color, but no sacrifice on flavor. It's the same crisp, bold flavor you'd expect from a renowned craft brewery like Creature Comforts Brewing Company. We love Classic City Lager. It's a taste of Athens, but you don't have to be in Athens to get it. You can find it wherever you're doing your shopping today. Classic City Lager is just good, cold beer. All right, a lot of times I'll do the golden shoe as we're signing off in today's program. Can I break protocol here just slightly, though? And I want to show the golden shoe video on the screen. Our buddy Jordan DeArmond sent this to us. She's not the person that put the video out. A Florida fan's actually the one that put the video out. But can we show this? This is a TikTok video of Dan and Megan Mullen. Now, this video is actually from the pandemic. I'm pretty sure we mocked Dan Mullen for this back at the time. He and Megan clearly spending a lot of time practicing this dance here together. And what the Florida fan with the Twitter header of Grantham and Co. got to go. So if you want to know how Florida fans are feeling about their coaching staff right now, that Twitter name alone tells you what you need to know. And he also writes in to say, my man don't give a dang about recruiting. He's going to audition for Dancing with the Stars soon. So this is the way that Florida fans right now are feeling about Dan Mullen. First of all, what a dork is this guy? He's got the Florida basketball shorts on. This has always been kind of a Florida move. Have you ever noticed that Florida fans wear football jerseys to basketball games and basketball jerseys to football games? Watch this. I mean, like, pay attention to this. This is one of those things that's kind of been a Florida thing for quite a while. I never quite understood that, but that's a little bit of a Florida thing there. And then Mullen doing the dancing video. I'm telling you right now, and I've said this now for a couple of years, Dan Mullen's biggest issue is not what Georgia fans say about him. It's what Florida fans say about him. And Mullen has never been quite as popular with his own fan base as some might think. And I appreciate Jordan DeArmond sending that to us. We'll make her the golden shoe winner for today as we get ready for the cocktail party coming up on Saturday. Let me also remind you that later on this afternoon at SEC Country Live, we'll talk to our buddies at BetUS. David Wassing, great gambling expert. We'll get some previews for him from the upcoming games the weekend. And don't forget, you can take advantage of a great promo code right now, DN125. DN stands for DawgNation. The 125 stands for 125% because you get an initial sign-up bonus of 125% when you sign up for that there today. So make sure you check that out. BetUS.com, DN125 is the promo code, and get signed up. We'll have our picks for the week later on Go With The Flow this week with our buddy Dari Payro. But you go ahead and get your own picks in there at BetUS and use the promo code DN125 to take advantage of the big 125% sign-up bonus. Make sure you take advantage of that today. Good stuff there for that. By the way, lousy, stinking Gators, you better believe we're getting ready for that. We're heading there. We're taking Eddie with us. We'll be giving out golden shoes. We have a huge collection of golden shoes still to give out this week. Remind you that 3 days from now, Dog's going to beat down those lousy, stinking Gators. We'll see you tomorrow right here on DawgNation Daily. And on video. Time now for our R.S. Andrews cool down. Boy, how great does that look? 3 days from now, the Dogs against the Gators. What a great win that's going to be, and what a great time to roll into our R.S. Andrews cool down right now. R.S. Andrews, of course, not only do they bring you the R.S. Andrews cool down each and every day, each and every week, as I said before, Dari Payro joins us for Go With The Flow, presented by R.S. Andrews. We'll make our picks for the week. A couple of pretty good SEC games to pick this week. One of the things we're going to get into before the week is done, there is, if you care about point spreads at all, there is something very fishy right now about Kentucky at Mississippi State. Kentucky only, at least at last check, maybe the line's changed some since then, but at last check, only about a 1.5 favorite in Starkville. And to me, that line seems precariously low for a Mississippi State team that I'm frankly not all that impressed with. And a dominant win at Vanderbilt doesn't do much to change that for me. Kentucky is a team that I have been pretty impressed with. Oftentimes when the folks at BetUS feel like they know something that I don't, makes me nervous. I trust their knowledge more than my own. But, man, that line really sticks out to me. Also interesting to see Auburn favored right now against Ole Miss. That's an interesting line. Of course, the game in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Of course, you know the story with Georgia and Florida. We'll get into all of that later on in the week. For now, let's dive into your comments. Let's do YouTube first because I don't believe I've started on YouTube first in the last couple of days. So let's do that there. Maybe our buddy William Perry will be in there too because we certainly enjoyed his work of art a little earlier. All right, here we go. Morgan Forrest says this win is just the next on the way to the greater goal. It is. There's one word, Morgan, I want to nitpick with you on. I think you're 100% right to say the win is the next on the way to a greater goal. You're 100% right about that. But the one thing I can't go with you on, though, is the idea that that's all it is. It's just that. Georgia-Florida is still more than that. And we're going to talk about this at some point this week, at least in my contention, that there is something about Georgia-Florida, and a lot of rivalries meet this criteria, but right now we're talking about this one. There's something about this game that actually goes beyond. It, in some ways, it transcends the idea of winning a championship, competing for a championship. Yes, that's Georgia's goal, and this game gets you there. But this is not one of those things where the intrinsic motivation this week has anything to do with the SEC East or anything to do with anything beyond that. I mean, there is some real powerful hatred, Georgia players for Florida players. We see the interactions they have on the field with each other. Clearly, these coaches, while they don't say it publicly, they don't really shy away with their actions. They don't like each other very much. This is a real rivalry. And listen, hate is a fuel, and it doesn't always burn the cleanest, but it burns, and it'll power that engine. And I believe that's some of what is going on here on Saturday. That for one particular day, and I mean this is a good thing, not a bad thing. For one particular day, it's about the two teams playing to be the best among each other. Clearly, that's the way Florida views this. They've already lost 3 times, but just because Georgia has bigger things in store the rest of the season, in my mind, and I believe in the mind of these coaches and players, privately, this doesn't diminish the importance of this game at all. They are going to be fired up thinking about the Florida Gators, I believe, on Saturday. White Knight says, could I try the Mullen dance? That would be much funnier. Listen, I'm going to give him credit, he and Megan both. They're better dancers than I am, and I don't believe I could get my wife. I mean, she's probably a lot more coordinated than I am. So she could probably figure that out quicker than I could. But I mean, it's not bad step work. I'm not gonna deny that. And yes, I'm sure that I would probably go viral for the wrong reasons if I did try that. Bank 6 pointing out Zach Evans. Boy, he's done some good things. He's been a little bit banged up, I guess, lately, but he's done some good things this year. Foster Moss says, have you ever seen a situation like Spencer Rattler? From starting the season as a potential Heisman finalist and number 1 pick in the draft to losing the starting spot and possibly having to transfer. Yeah, it's really weird. But, Foster, here's the one thing that we had a lot of folks tell us. And sometimes you never know if to take this kind of stuff seriously or not. But folks were telling us that Caleb Williams was one of the special quarterback prospects to come out at any point in time in the recent past. And Oklahoma got him. Now, Georgia went down the road with Williams for a while, but Oklahoma won that recruiting battle. And so I think there were a lot of people that thought Williams just, apples to apples comparison, was a better quarterback prospect than Rattler was. And the other thing that I think has kind of worked out here is watch the TV commentary sometimes when it involves Spencer Rattler. I don't know Rattler personally. I know some of you have seen the QB1 doc, and maybe Rattler doesn't come across great in that. But you can listen to some of the things that get said on TV where I remember, I guess during the Oklahoma-Texas game, it was pointed out to me that Kirk Herbstreit said something to the effect of, look how much fun these Texas players, or I should say the Oklahoma players, seem to have playing for Caleb Williams. They seem to be enjoying themselves. It's almost like a nod that something about Rattler is not quite gelling with the rest of those Oklahoma teammates. I'm not close enough to Norman to be able to say that myself, but that's definitely the conversation that's in the air a little bit, that not only is Williams probably the better player, but Williams is also probably the better teammate, seems to fit in better with his teammates. And one of the reasons why I think that Lincoln Riley has treaded so lightly in all of this, restrictive with the media and disregarding the nature of questions when asked about it. I think he's worried about what Rattler might do. And there's not a lot of quarterback depth beyond Rattler right now, if you assume that Williams is the starter, and now that he is. Not a lot of depth in that program beyond Rattler at the moment. And I think that is something that's left Lincoln Riley a little bit concerned. But you're right. It's somewhat of a unique situation. But if any school is going to have that, it's probably Oklahoma, because Oklahoma's shown you. And listen, I don't think they're a legit national championship contender. They're still the same Oklahoma they've been. But the one spot where they do excel, they find a way to get the best quarterbacks and oftentimes get the most out of those quarterbacks. And, Caleb Williams appears to be the next example of that. Paul Moon and Green Soldier were talking about something. Green Soldier says, so I guess this is about quarterbacks. That may be what that is. I'm trying to follow Paul and Green Soldier's back and forth here, but I think that started before I picked up the comments. Dog Daddy says the average person that can afford to go to a home game may not be able to afford the Jacksonville game. It costs a lot more. Home and home may be the only way this person can see a Georgia-Florida game. I don't disregard that, Dog Daddy. I really don't. I have been lucky enough to go to some Georgia-Florida games in my lifetime, and they are kind of an expensive proposition, especially if you do it, to the full extreme. There are also some ways. I mean, remember this. Like, you can drive. You can stay in Brunswick if you want to. You can kind of skip the tailgate, go to the game, and, depending on how you time it, you can only get one hotel night out of this. There's a very good chance I'll end up spending one hotel night, there this particular weekend. So I totally acknowledge the premise of your point that the Georgia-Florida game is a little bit of an expensive proposition for most. There are ways to do it on the cheap. In my lifetime, I've done it on the far end where it's been pretty expensive. I've done it on the other end where it's been a lot more cost-effective. This year's probably a little bit more of the cost-effective route just because I'm not going to be there very long. So I do totally acknowledge that for most people, the kind of median trip is a couple of nights hotel, expensive ticket. Obviously, if you try to do any of the stuff around the game, that gets to be a little bit expensive there too. Totally acknowledge that more people would see the Georgia-Florida game if the game was in Athens every other year. Completely acknowledge that. And there's been some chatter as of late about the value of the season ticket seemingly going down for whatever reason. Games against like Tennessee and Georgia Tech and teams like that haven't seemingly meant in recent years what they used to be. Now, Tennessee may be on the other end of that, getting a little bit better now, but there is some thought among some Georgia fans that, hey, I pony up for these season tickets, and I'd like to see Florida come into my stadium. I don't want to have to travel to go see them. I don't disregard that. Even if my point of view is slightly different on that, I don't disregard that, because here's the thing that is important to remember, that while if you live in Northeast Georgia, the Athens trips are cost-effective for you, there are a lot of people who pony up big to come to Athens. There are a lot of people who every time they come to Athens, that's 2 hotel nights. And because if you live down there in, any of that area around Savannah, even middle Georgia to a degree, the Georgia-Florida game is their cheap game. So, and maybe that means something to you, maybe it doesn't. But I don't disregard the idea that that for a lot of people, the Georgia-Florida game is a little bit of an expensive proposition. I don't take for granted the fact that I've been lucky enough to take advantage of that a few times over the years. I'm right there with you on all of that. So I think that's a fair addition to the conversation. Johnny Lester says, I'm lucky I get to crash at my sister's high-rise condo overlooking the stadium. That's actually really fun. And I just water taxi right on over. Yeah, boy, I've had a lot of those water taxi experiences over the years. Some of those more memorable than others, I guess. All right, on Facebook for a moment. Robbie McCullough says, is the Georgia-Florida ticket included in season tickets when we're the home team? No, that's a great question. A season ticket holder in Athens technically only gets to go to the games in Athens. Now, the way it also works is, so when you are a donor to Georgia, you have to be a donor to get season tickets. When you're a donor to Georgia, you also have a chance to apply for other tickets. And believe it or not, the Georgia-Florida ticket, oftentimes for ticket donors to the program, is a little easier to get than a lot of away games are. Because, as I said before, in the regular show, there's only like 8 or so thousand tickets usually allotted. For instance, had last year been a normal year, non-pandemic, and all the tickets had been available, it would have been easier to get Georgia-Florida tickets than it would have been to get Georgia-Alabama tickets. That the cutoff for Georgia-Florida, the number of lifetime donor points you've earned, is going to be a little lower for Georgia-Florida because they've got, 30 or 40,000 tickets they're able to disperse for that game, whereas the most attractive away ticket only has about 8,000 tickets. Like the Notre Dame game in 2017 would have been the highest probably threshold for what it took to get that game. So from a donor standpoint, it does not come with your season ticket, but it's also, I don't want to say it's reasonable to achieve, but it's like that next thing that you can kind of cross over that, if you kind of stay with the program for a while, eventually you can work your way up to being able to get those Florida tickets there that way. Justin Sis says, best place to park on game day. Taking my daughter to her first game next month. I haven't been in years. Justin, I'm glad you're getting a chance to come. Where is the best place to park if you're parking for the first time? I guess it depends on how comfortable you are with a young one walking. My kids, when I first started taking them to games, the walk was the hardest part, right? There's a lot of walking for a Georgia game. And while as adults, we don't think much about that, those little legs for kids, that does make a difference. I think one of the things you might ask yourself is it one of those things where if it's worth it to be close to you, it may be worth it to spend a little bit of secondary market money and get one of those on-campus parking passes before the game, like during the week, whether it be like East Campus or one of the deck lots or something like that. That might be one of those things that you consider a little bit more expensive. Sometimes secondary market, you're paying a little bit of extra price. But if you want the shorter walk because you've got a young one with you, because here's my thing. When I first started taking my kids to games, and my daughter's only 6, so I'm still kind of in this mode with her a little bit. One of the most important things is you want the experience to go well because you want them to come back. And I remember with my son, the first game we went to, believe it or not, was the Georgia Tech game in 2016. This is such a weird thing. We were still in kind of the early days of DawgNation. We'd only been doing a video post-game show for a little while. And my wife was supposed to take my son that day. My daughter at that time would have been way too young to come to the game. She'd only been like 1 year old, I guess. But my wife ended up not being able to go, and so I'm supposed to work. But we weren't quite doing all the same stuff video-wise we're doing now. So I thought, okay, I'll just sit in the stands with my son. I'll take him to the game, then we'll go over to the bookstore. We'll do a quick post-game show. I thought George was going to beat Tech. I mean, why would you not have? And then Tech won the game. And this is right after we'd started doing the Gator Hater Countdown for the first time. I was getting all these bad Twitter messages from Georgia fans about, hyping up the Florida game when we had business to take care of against Georgia Tech. I'm like, oh, gosh, what a disaster. I've got this, what would he have been, 4-year-old child with me at the game. I'm trying to keep up with him and trying to make sure he has a good experience because I want him to want to come back to the games in the future. What a disaster that day turned out to be. One of the worst memories for me. Just one of the worst memories. Let's see what else. A couple more comments. We got to get ready to go. Michael O'Neill says, just ride around. There's parking everywhere. Kind of, but it's also one of those things of, I'm not the kind of person that likes just different personalities work different ways. I'm not the kind of person that wants to go down there without a plan for parking, because while there's, public lots of offer parking, things like that, traffic can be unpredictably bad, sometimes worse than others. And when you're trying to, get into a specific lot or circle around looking for a place to pay to park, that is not the easiest thing sometimes do. I like to know where I'm going to park before I go. Now, sometimes for Braves games, things like that, I'm just going to do that on the fly, although it's harder to do that at Truist Park than it used to be at the old stadium. But for a Georgia game, now it's a little bit different now because I'm always parking in the same place. But for a Georgia game as a fan, I kind of like to know where I'm going. I mean, I know for a lot of folks going to the game in Charlotte this past year, that turned out to be a disaster. Like you get around there and the city of Charlotte just had a hard time seemingly managing that traffic flow. I heard tons of complaints about that. And that thing where you're kind of circling around looking for a place to park. Sometimes that does not go super well. But some people are fine with that. When I was younger, this is back in the days of ticket stubs in hand, of course. I used to go to the game without tickets, and I just scalp them from a true scalper, right? I mean, I used to like to buy tickets from scalpers because oftentimes you get better seats. You could usually get a better price closer to the game than you could during the week when you're using the online means that we had available to us back then. So I used to transact all kinds of business with ticket scalpers and everything else, and my personality is just different now. If I was going to a regular game as a regular fan, I just wouldn't be able to go. I think it's because I have kids. That's really the big difference, is that like when you're an adult going with another adult, you have the freedom just to be very nimble, right? You can change your mind on the fly. But with kids, it's like turning a battleship. Everything is just going to be pre-planned and no surprises. So I think the presence of children has made me a lot more averse to, hey, we'll go down there and find a place to park, or we'll go down there and we'll figure out how to get tickets. Just that kind of stuff with kids just raises the tension level. Jerry Pop. Jerry, that is very funny. Marcus Chafin, good to see you in here. Appreciate your great contribution to our show. Miriam Martin Corbin says the battery was crazy wild last night. I'm dying to get down there for a game. Honestly, the ticket price of the World Series is a little too rich for my blood currently. I've never been to a World Series game. I've been, just over the years, I've just been very lucky in that I've been able to go to a lot of sporting events. I've been to, and most of these were tickets that I bought, right? I mean, I've had some press passes, but for the most part, for non-Georgia UGA events, I've paid for the tickets. And I've just, been lucky enough to be in a place where I could be able to do that. And I've seen every kind of Braves playoff game imaginable. I mean, for a good stretch there, every big game that any Atlanta team played, I was at all those games. Just when you're young and dumb and don't have kids, you have more freedom about stuff like that. I've never been to a World Series game. I tried like crazy to go to the 99 World Series, and thankfully I missed out on that because the Yankees absolutely whitewashed the Braves, but I missed out on that 99 World Series. I remember trying to trade some Tech, like Georgia Tech tickets. It turned out to be the Jasper Zanks fumble game. I'm trying to do a trade with somebody on those tickets for some World Series tickets, and just the whole thing was crazy. But I've never been to a World Series game. I'd like crazy to go to one of these, but the get-in price right now is like $1,100. I mean, it's like $1,000 just for like standing room only tickets. This is the last time I looked it was. I am thankful for a job that puts a roof over my head, but my job does not afford me $1,000 World Series tickets. But there is a very good chance, because last year when the games were at the neutral site, and I promise y'all we're going to get off the air here in a minute. Last year when the game were at the neutral sites, I had some friends. We went down to the Battery for all those games, and that was great. Now this year, for whatever reason, we've just been busy. So I haven't had much of a chance to do that. But, I mean, it's even to when, like some of the video I saw from Saturday night for the NLCS was fantastic. So I'd love to be able to do that. And if you can't be at the stadium, that's probably the next best thing to do. In fact, I know for a fact that it is. Billy White Jr. says, not Billy White Shoes Johnson, but Billy White Jr. says, what are your thoughts on Ladd McConkey? I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. No, I think that for a championship season, and we said this before about Arian Smith, there are a lot of guys who are going to make a contribution. But there's no doubt, Billy, that you're 100% right, that McConkey has given Georgia a massive contribution. And if we're not giving enough credit, we should be. Because, I mean, you heard Kirby Smart in the audio clip I played earlier, and that was good news. But still in the midst of that, he was still talking about Jermaine Burton being banged up, Dominic Blaylock not coming back, which is actually a little bit of a disappointment for me because I thought he might be coming back for this game. Clearly, George Pickens is still hurt. Like, you can go through the list of guys who have been hurt and who are not ready to come back, that you realize that if McConkey and the guy that's really gotten undercovered, like you say, you think McConkey's not got enough credit, and maybe he hasn't, although at one point in time he was kind of the toast of the town. But the guy who's gotten actually less coverage than McConkey has is A.D. Mitchell. And I think that Mitchell and McConkey, two guys that, as a recruit, basically anybody could have had. I'm not saying that to disparage them. I'm saying these were not – if somebody had prioritized A.D. Mitchell, they may could have won that recruitment. If somebody would have prioritized Ladd McConkey, especially if Tennessee had, they could have maybe won that recruitment. These were guys that were not heavily recruited. Georgia identified something in them, and they've come in here and given Georgia quality wide receiver play with this position group being as banged up and injured as any possibly ever could be. So I agree with your overall premise that we can't stop talking about McConkey for what he's been able to do, but you also need to include A.D. Mitchell in that there as well, because he's been pretty remarkable there as well. By the way, our buddy William Perry, who created or helped commission, I guess the right word, the tremendous work of art that we showed a moment ago. He's in the comment section at DawgNation.com. William, that was so much fun. It was actually nice to get a good, genuine laugh out of Mike Griffith on that. There you go. So this is William's handiwork here. Dave Helwig, of course, the illustrator on this. But it was nice to get a good hearty laugh out of Mike on that, and I can't wait to show this to both Connor and Jeff tomorrow night as a part of Cover 4 Live. That's going to be fun. Oh, by the way, yeah, here's Bruce Eklund. I think this is this. Let me get this. Yeah, so Bruce Eklund says, that talking Gators during the Tech week caused us to fall that week to Tech. Bruce, I got all kinds of grief for that back in 2016. And, I mean, I was not ready for it. I was not ready for that Tech. I was not ready to see Georgia lose to Tech that day. That was not on my radar. I was taking my 4-year-old son to the game. I'm getting booed out of the stadium. Boy, what a disaster. What a disaster that was. Oh, my gosh. Jesse Dellinger says Brenton Cox going to try to pull his best Superman impression at half and change into a UGA jersey. That's actually really funny. That's actually really funny. Robbie Rainey says, coworker of mine bought 2 Game 5 tickets for $700. They checked this morning. They were going for $1,100 a piece. They don't really want to sell them, but at the same time, they might have to. Yeah, listen, that's a lot of money. I mean, if you have a chance to make $2,200, now when you say, I never am quite sure about this. Was it $700 for the pair or $700 a piece? Because if they get them for $700 for the pair and get a chance to sell them for more than $2,000, I mean, listen, that's a lot of money. That can pay for Christmas right there. They can put you on a Royal Caribbean cruise. I mean, now there's also one of those things of like a truly special sporting event. It's hard to put a price tag on that. Like if you told me I could have sold my Rose Bowl, now I wasn't on tickets, I was in a credential. But let's say I could have sold my credential. No, you can't sell the credential, but let's just say I could have. Like I don't think they would have sold it for $10,000. Or if I had sold it for $10,000, I would have been making a mistake. And listen, I'm a kind of person that could really use $10,000. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that ultimately memories are worth more than money. Now I realize you need money, and if I had a chance to have $2,000, there's a very good chance I might take it. But it's hard to put a price tag on a good fun memory. And so that's a really tough choice. If I was holding to, had a chance to make nearly $2,000 in profit, would I rather have the $2,000? Would I rather have the unforgettable memory of a World Series game? Boy, that's an interesting question. $700 for the pair. Wow, Robbie, that's a good deal. That's a good deal, and a good option. It's either making a lot of money, or now here's what you might do. And after this, we're getting off the air. What if you went ahead and sold them? You got the $2,000, $2,500, whatever you get for them, and Braves go ahead and win in 4. I guess at that point in time, yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. Interesting stuff. Robbie, thanks for sharing that with us, and let us know what your friend decides to do, because that's a pretty interesting choice all the way around there. Pretty good stuff. All right, we got to go. We've gone crazy long. By the way, speaking of the Atlanta Braves, winners last night, great coverage from Houston and all this. Beautiful photography from the AJC. That's one of the things you get from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. This great action photography from these games. Check out the e-paper. You see a lot of that. Of course, great coverage from Gabe Burns, all the columnists there in Minute Maid Park, obviously following Game 2. How do the Braves – the serious part of this is how do you deal with the Charlie Morton injury? You know, what happens with that roster spot? What do you do potentially in Game 5? So there's a lot of chatter about beyond just the excitement of the Braves being in the World Series. There's some real business to take care of. And I'm going to tell you this right now. You have got to get a Bulldog performance from Max Fried tonight. Fried did not have his best start going back to the start in L.A. there in the NLCS. And obviously Fried's been the horse for this team second half of the regular season. So important to get that big start from him tonight, knowing that your other ace is on the shelf now And by the way, how tough is Morton for throwing, what did he throw, a dozen pitches with a broken leg? That's crazy. So you got to really ride Fried tonight. His start becomes crucial for you, knowing that you need that focal point ace starting pitcher here. That's obviously a different topic for probably a different show. We'll stay with Georgia football around here. All right, good stuff all the way around. Check out R.S. Andrews online, rsandrews.com, for your air conditioning, heating, plumbing, electric needs. I mentioned the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Check them out there as well, ajc.com. Great coverage of the Braves. Also, tremendous podcast there as well. One of the things that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is doing, really beefing up their podcast presence, so you can check that out with the AJC there too. Atlanta Journal-Constitution online at ajc.com. All right, y'all have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow. DawgNation Daily. Getting ready for the Dogs and the Gators, moving closer to game day. The Gator Hater Countdown rolls on. We'll see you then for that. Have a great day, everybody.